Guys, welcome back. We are back after a very long Eid break.
It was nice.
We had some good time away. I was away in Macedonia.
I was in
where were you?
Sicily.
Sicily.
I was in Italy, yeah.
Mafioso.
I had to go visit the Godfathers.
Yeah.
No, it was beautiful.
But yeah, look, absolutely unbelievable to have pretty much a full week off, bar one day, which was amazing for what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about team culture. This is going to be a two-part series because there is so much to discuss. We're going to get into it. There are many different angles to approach this from, but we think that we've got a lot of decent content for you. It's about understanding where culture sits, who's responsible for it, how it all comes together, and how everyone can play their role in building a team culture.
Creating culture, for sure. And I think there's a lot of misconception. There's a story I was listening to this morning by Richard Branson. When he first, so of course Richard Branson's background was in music. When he first started...
it was actually, did you know it was actually a magazine before that? It was a student.
Really?
He first started a student magazine in university. And then
Virgin.
He built that up.
Yeah.
And then so I think it was called The Student or something. I forget what it was. I read the book a long time ago. And then he went into music. And then he opened the record
started
store.
Doing the
and
airlines,
then started to roll from there.
So basically, the story that I heard was even the name Virgin. When he tried to actually register the name, it was too offensive, and people for
especially
2 or 3 years,
like the 70s or something.
Exactly.
Right?
So for like 2 or 3 years, people didn't want to register the name Virgin until he actually went to the dictionary and said Virgin means pure, and then he kind of like gave them another alternative meaning, and he's like, look, it's not offensive, it just means pure. And then they finally agreed to register it. But the nice story there was when he first started the airlines, of course he had no clue about aviation in general. And the reason why he wanted to start a new airlines is he wanted to enhance the experience while they travel in the air. So he wanted to give people a travel experience that was a bit more entertaining. And the story has it that he went to I guess Airbus or Boeing and took a second-hand airplane and basically told them that if I don't sell enough from now until December, you guys can have the plane back. But then everything went well.
So he covered himself.
But the cool thing there is the way that he managed to create a company that is really delivering a good service to their clients is by creating a culture from the start. So he's surrounded by himself by people who first of all knew what they were doing. So they were the right people. His CEO at the time was an engineer, airplane engineer. So he wanted to make sure that safety was really important for the company. But then also he surrounded himself by people who were not negative, were not criticizing people all the time, and he kind of highlighted that
positive outlook. Right?
Exactly, and he had to, and there was of course the two-way trust. Like he had to trust the A team, which was surrounding him, to make sure that his vision is getting implemented to the way he expected.
Well, I mean, one of his core, let's say, statements that he says across all of his businesses is if you look after your employees, they'll look after your customers.
100%.
And I think that he's a model of that. You know, as he said, as you were saying off camera earlier, when he set that business up, he didn't know the first thing about aviation, right?
Yeah.
So how on earth do you start an airline when you don't know the first thing about aviation? But it's interesting because many people that do go into that space don't know I mean, how many pilots start airlines? I mean, I don't know the stats, but I'm sure it's very, very few, right?
Yeah,
so it's interesting that's, you know, it's the core skill set of that industry, yet how many of those people are actually running those sort of businesses, which then tells us that the people that are running those businesses, such as Richard Branson, don't know many of the skill sets that are actually required to deliver the core service that they're offering to their customers. So therefore, how do you build a business in that way? And it has to come down to trust, and it has to come down to the right people.
And it's, I mean, before even I would want to take a step back as well. I mean, before developing the right team, the guy had the balls to call Airbus and say,
I think it was
Boeing? Okay. And then just say, hey guys, I'm Richard Branson. Can I have a second-hand plane from you guys? Like, imagine, like, who are you anyways? You know what I mean? And just the fact that he actually took that step. And I think that barrier sometimes in our minds, like whenever we want to start a company or even think about starting a business, there's this massive barrier wall. Like who am I? Where do we start? Like, would they even take me seriously? Do I have a place in the market? And he didn't even think about any of that. He's like, look, can I just have a plane? Let's start from there.
You know, there's actually a really interesting story just before that he was on holiday. And the flight between, I think it was 2 islands, I'm not sure where it is. I've got an idea it might have been in the Caribbean somewhere. And the flight got cancelled. So everybody that was supposed to be on that flight was sat in the airport, and everyone was trying to find different ways to get to where they needed to be, et cetera, et cetera. They're all trying to go to the one specific destination. Now, he couldn't find, or none of them could find a viable route to get to that destination. So he went and found he found a plane and a pilot.
Okay.
And he just said, right, $20 a seat, whatever.
That was
it
his
is.
first
That
chartered.
was his first one. He's like just
Nice.
puts a board up. He's like he just sold all the seats. He did one deal with the guy that had a plane.
Yeah.
And then he sold all the other seats to the other people that are waiting. And that
amazing.
that was where it started.
I think the reason why we bring up Richard Branson is because he's a guy that definitely penetrated so many different industries, but maybe without his knowledge about the industry.
Yeah, not
he didn't have the right knowledge for it.
No, I mean he runs trains across UK. He doesn't drive trains.
Yeah,
like, what does he know about trains? Nothing.
And it's about like creating the right people or hiring the right people for the right jobs to make sure that the culture is the right culture as well.
If you get that, and he just goes to show, if you can get the culture right within a business, within a startup, and that's planned from day one, you can literally do anything. You can operate in any space. If you hire the right people, you surround yourself with the right people, you give them the freedom to make the decisions that they need to make because they're the experts, and then you just double down on those strengths over and over again. As you can see, he's got 200 odd businesses in multiple different industries all across the globe because he keeps doing that.
So I'd say the first takeaway is definitely hire the right people. If you want to start building a strong culture, make sure that the people that you're integrating within your culture, first of all, is of the same kind of mindset. They're the people that you would trust, personally you would trust, to make sure that whenever they're interacting with the rest of your team members, they create that environment and vibe as well, and they carry on the culture that you have in mind.
Look, I think when it starts from the very beginning, before you start hiring people, you need to understand, what do you want your organization to look like? What environment do you want to create? You need to map that out and understand, okay, what is this culture going to be? How do I want to operate this business? Because in the beginning, it's just the one person, right? And then you need to start to map that out and say, right, well, when I start going into this hiring process, which sometimes can take quite a while, you might be in business 6 months before you hire the first person. You might be in business 2 years. It just depends on the industry you're in and the nature of what you're doing. But once you've decided, I'm going to go down the route of bringing people on, and therefore, even if there's just one other person, we're now going to start to create a culture. You need to map out exactly what you want that to look like, because then when you go through the hiring process, you can look for people that have those values and are motivated by the same things. If you get that wrong from the beginning, it's very, very difficult to change somebody's personality to match your desired outcome of culture if you don't get the right people in the room.
For sure.
But if you get the right people around the table, it's untold what you can do.
Exactly, and I think that's a great example of culture starts with interacting from one another as well. I think especially when we have a company, let's say we have a group of people that are working together, and you've got a new hire on board, the way that they start adapting with the culture is when they start interacting with everyone in the team. Because they start learning about what's okay, what's not okay, and culture starts from you. Whether you're the leader or you're the employee, it starts both ways. There's a lot of misconception about, okay, cool, the culture gets set, and maybe the vision of the company and the culture is set from the leader team or leadership team, but at the end of the day, it's your own personal culture. And because we do live in a very sort of multicultural society, we might have we do have a lot of differences. So understanding those differences and understanding that, we've got to be tolerant, we've got to be flexible, understanding, and lenient. And also we've got to understand, where do we implement our own culture to make sure that if there is a negative, ripple effect that's happening within the group around you, you're able to stop it. So that's something important as well.
I completely agree with that. And I suppose the takeaway from that for the listeners here is, whether you're in a leadership team, when you're part of a leadership team, and that could be at any single level within a business, or you're starting out with your career and you're part of the team. So there's two sides to this. There's a really clear takeaway from this for both parties here, and that's complete ownership of culture. Culture is not about what management dictates to the team. Culture, as you said off camera earlier, is if somebody walks over to the desk, how do you engage with that person? Therefore, you own the culture as much as management owns the culture.
Of that interaction.
Exactly, because that individual interaction, culture comes from interaction between people. And that's not just necessarily between management and team, it's also with team and team.
For sure.
So therefore, if you're working in an environment, you are just as responsible for culture as anyone else within that environment. Now, what do you do if you're in a shitty culture? No, and let's be honest, we're in a position where we deal with a lot of different companies, a lot of different people. We're interviewing a lot of different people because we're growing the business. So we're having a lot of conversations around culture, and people are coming to us because they see us as a place that does have a good culture, and we're proud to say that it's something
Yeah.
that we do invest a lot in. Now, with regards to if you're in that space and you're in a bad culture, how can you approach that? Firstly, it's to understand that you're just as much part of this as anyone else in the team. Now, that doesn't mean that you can fix it on your own. Leadership have to have a major role in playing with this. So how do you approach it? You have to. There's two ways. Firstly, you have to approach it head on. There's no getting around this.
Yeah.
You have to have a meeting with the senior team, have a meeting with your boss, explain how you feel about what the culture is within the agency, how you feel it can change, and not pushing it all back onto them, but saying, this is how I would like to see things change. This is how I will contribute to this. I've spoken to A, B, C, and D people. This is what we would like to do to change things. And then see what that reciprocative conversation is. Let's see how you can start to change the dynamic. If that doesn't work, if you have a direct conversation, and even if there's promises made, if actions aren't then taken, then maybe it's not the right place for you to be working. But there's definitely there's an opportunity to change culture.
And just to add something more there as well, I mean, even if you raise, let's say, some concerns that you've got about the culture within your environment to your leadership team, and you realize that honestly maybe your leadership team isn't paying attention or doesn't want to pay attention to the flagged situations that you've had in mind, what I would recommend is continue, protect your own culture. And what I mean by that is, if you've got a personal standard of dealing with people and wanting that environment around you to be, you've got control over that.
Yeah.
So don't be the victim by saying, look, it's my environment, because you're in control of your immediate environment, which means is if it is a negative culture, you could choose to stop that negativity as soon as it comes your way.
You choose to engage in that negativity,
exactly,
right?
And I think that if you maintain that sort of standard that you want to put yourself in, even if your leadership team isn't really engaging with the problematic issues within the culture, and if you are in a corporate environment, you're gonna stand out from the rest. And let's say if it's a C-level, let's say, decision made that one day they want to create a new leadership team, you're going to be looked at as somebody who's different.
100%.
And that's something that you definitely should not compromise whenever even if you're in a bad situation. Don't compromise on your own personal standard of wanting to be that, or creating that culture around you.
Yeah.
So that's
that's owning how you engage, right?
Yeah.
So 100% ties back into that ownership side.
And I think we yesterday we had a meeting with one of our clients that came in, and it was amazing to see them. As soon as they walked in, they were like, "Wow, it's a cool vibe." And I feel like as soon as everybody walks in and says it's a cool vibe, that's the culture that we're creating, and that's the kind of energy that we're transmitting. And I feel the added value to that is you start attracting clients that want to work with you. So it's not just about attracting employees that want to be part of your team, but also the working environment with clients is effective. Because 100%. That ripples down to that as well.
There's two sides to it. Look, if you're in a leadership position in terms of running a team, running a business, you've got a startup, you're starting to hire a few people. There are real benefits on both sides. There's the humanity side of it, and it is the right thing to do, and it is what you should do. You're dealing with humans. Be human. Be human and create the environment that you want to be part of. But on the other side to it, there's real benefits to the business here. You will have a better selection of people that want to be part of your business, because you create an environment that people want to be part of. Everybody doubles down, everybody feels part of it. Other people decide they want to be part of that, whether that be clients coming in and wanting to do business with somebody, whether that be key people from the industry that decide they want to work in this environment. Sure. So all of a sudden it actually helps, everything helps each other. You help the actual the mental side and the human side of creating an environment of great people, and then there's also the business side of it, where you're going to build a stronger, more stable, more productive business because you're doing the right thing.
Definitely. And I think, now that we've established the importance of creating a positive and important culture, the benefits then of creating that culture, like we said, is, clients want to work with you. You're attracting the top talents of the industry and the teams, and also that you've got an instilled high standard performance for your company. So you've instilled a culture that's so comfortable for people. So that means you're retaining the good talent within your team and company, but also that gives you the stretch and flexibility that you're able to deliver out to the market something that's of a high standard, product or service.
Of course.
And that affects, quite a bit. If you're trying to be a leader in an industry, start with your culture and then watch how that ripples to every single aspect of your business.
No, I totally agree. So let's get into a couple of the the areas that we think that need a little bit more focus in order to create a good culture? Like, how do you go about this? One of the first things that we say from day one here is absolute respect. So absolute respect can come both internally and externally. Internally is certainly the more obvious one with regards to absolute respect of co-workers. And as you were saying just earlier, like why do you feel that is such an important element in this particular market?
I think that we are living in such a diverse community, and we have so many different cultures, and we've seen it in so many times when we walk into a meeting. And look, I grew up here, and I still sometimes get a little bit sort of in an odd situation where if I'm if there's an Emirati woman, for example, I'm trying to say hi to, I don't extend my hand. I wait for her to extend her hand if she wants to handshake. And I feel like those small things where you need to be aware of, just to be respectful to the culture and to start with, and also to understand, to just show that you really you did your research to understand their background. So the sensitivities around different backgrounds and different cultures, because we live in this country where it's mixed from so many different nationalities, is very important. So being aware of everyone else's culture will give you that advantage. You know what I mean? So that you don't have an awkward situation or you don't offend anyone else.
Yeah, look, I think a prime example that we've just come through here now is Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
So Ramadan is a prime example of understanding cultural sensitivities. If you might not necessarily partake in Ramadan, as in you may not be
fasting.
You might not be fasting. You may not be a Muslim. And so therefore Ramadan is something that you will be engaging in just by living here. However, it's not necessarily part of your culture or culture that you grew up with. But then understanding the sensitivities around that and showing absolute respect to co-workers that might be fasting. And that really doubles down when people see somebody else respecting their belief system.
They would appreciate you.
They appreciate that so much more. Of course they do. And as you said, we're in such a multicultural society here. I mean, if we just look in the office that we've got here, almost 60 people.
Do you know how many nationalities you've got?
Actually, off the top of my head, off the top of my head, I don't. But so many nationalities. But even outside of nationalities, that's an easy one. It's everyone's grown up in a different way.
For sure.
Everyone's grown up with different challenges, different backgrounds. Yes, they've come from different countries, but everyone's had their own
life experience.
Their own life experience, and their own journey to get to where they are now. And now they're all sat within a particular environment as we are in this business now. So everyone needs to understand that you don't know everyone's life journey, and you don't necessarily know their background, their family situation, and all of these things. But if you show complete respect to the person next to you and their belief system, and you value their belief system as much as you value your belief system, what you will find is you'll create that culture of respect with each other, and then the ability to work with each other is just so much better, and you start to build
so
that
much easier,
culture.
for sure.
The second part of it, as you said, is the external, when you're engaging with somebody. So let's say the Emirati lady, and you walk into the meeting, and that's somebody that might be outside of the business. So that absolute respect internally then flows through to absolute respect for clients as well. And that's not just because you're doing business with them, but that's you putting your front foot forward as a business. That's someone's coming into contact with one of the team members, and they get absolute respect shown to them, and that starts to be the touch point of your business.
Exactly, on the face of it. And I think a second point that we wanted to cover about creating the culture is, from my perspective, is space. We're blessed here at the moment to have this amazing space where people can actually maybe disconnect from the work desk and then move around and maybe go to a creative space. But if you don't have that in your office space, then maybe creating outdoor activities with your team members or with your team would help create that sort of personal human connection. Because I've seen it so many times, and especially in big corporations, where people have been working in the same company for 5 or 10 years, but they don't know anything about each other.
They're not even friendly.
I mean, you don't need to be friends in terms of outside the workspace,
you're
but
not
at
best
least
mates. But you got to be
exactly.
You got to be kind of you got to know each other a bit, right?
100%, and just even knowing facts about the person, where personal information, personal facts, and that comes from creating those environments and events, and that's something that the leadership team should take action with when it comes to creating the social engagements.
I totally agree, and what we've seen. Look, we've all read about this, about how space has such an impact on team culture, and we read books on this sort of stuff. But I've only recently seen it in action when we moved from the offices downstairs, which could have been any office. It was like a lawyer's office with some paint on the wall. That was it. It was not. It wasn't
a cool graffiti wall.
It wasn't a creative space, but we moved from there to this environment. As you can see, look, It's a nice spot here. There's different breakout areas. There's different areas for people to work, and we've already noticed the different personalities and different people are starting to congregate in different areas. Some people like to work on the sofa. Some people sit at the desks. But creating the right space for people has really helped shape the culture of how people are interacting, because there's different sort of pockets of environments about where people can have these social interactions. And it's something we really need to consider, and it was your first point today, that culture comes from interactions between two people and between a group of people. And it becomes that those shared norms of communication, those shared norms and values that people have when they start to interact with each other. So if you can better create those environments for people to double down on those interactions, then that's how you foster culture, right?
You manifest the culture, for sure.
But what do you do if you don't, I mean, one side is if you're not moving into big offices and you're moving into, let's say, a shared workspace like a business center, find a business center like WeWork or something like that that actually matches what you're trying to do. Does it have little breakout areas? Is there a writable wall with beanbags? And it might sound silly, but there's a reason why someone like Google invests millions upon millions in every office around the world to create that space.
For sure.
It's all built on psychology. It's all built on their understanding of how people interact, and it's all built on their understanding of how that affects productivity. They don't do anything by accident.
Yeah, definitely. No,
so how do you do it if you don't have an office space? How do you take people out?
For sure. I think activities, like outdoor activities or activities outside of work is super important. I mean,
so that's after work drinks.
Exactly. Or it could be if we go to the desert. We've done a few activities in the desert.
The ATVs, the quad bikes, the Santa Claus outfits.
So it could be really anything that engages a team activity. And there's plenty of these activities in Dubai. So if you are based in Dubai, then I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you can engage your team with. But it's taking the time. The problem is we're sometimes so engaged with the business and so it's not a priority, but it is. It is as much a priority than anything else. And I think that's what from a leadership perspective is you need to start changing your mindset, because it's not just about the targets or, are we on targets or are we on plan? Because you need to take care of your people. Otherwise, you're not going to achieve that target.
100%.
So sometimes I would say even if you are feeling that the business is going through maybe a bit of a rough time, probably that's the best time to actually pull back and create something for the team. Because if you want your teams to supercharge your business, then you've got to pay attention to the team.
You've got to supercharge your team. Yeah, so. 100%. And look, and that segues nicely into probably our final point, which is around humanity in the workplace, right? And it's about understanding business can't be run just on metrics and spreadsheets. And if you do focus just on metrics and spreadsheets, your business will only be as successful as that will allow. What strong businesses do, what high-performing businesses do, what high-performing teams do, is they focus on the individuals and they focus on this team culture as much as they focus on performance and metrics, because they understand the dynamic between these two different conversations. One of the things that I see time and time again, certainly in this market, is a lack of humanity in the workplace. And that is a real issue, where people think they come in and they're, okay, I'm a manager, I've got a job to do, this is what I need to do within my box, and they're very business orientated, and they go home and that's it. But what people forget is everyone here is a human. Everyone here has a family. Everyone here has potentially, they have kids they're looking after. They've got pets they're looking after. They've got friends they go for a drink with after work. They're all humans, and they don't shed that and walk through the door and become robots. So if you're going to treat people like robots and it's just, this is a workforce of robots, no, this is a team of human beings. And if you can bring more humanity into the workplace and really show that you care as an employer, if you show that you can care as a team leader, you might have just one person reporting to you. It might just be two people. It doesn't necessarily have to be an entire company. But if you show that you actually care about these people as human beings, and together you create that culture of respect, then that's where you need to be. That's where you need to be.
So I hope we added a bit of value in terms of what the importance of culture, creating culture, and the benefits of having an environment that's positive and impactful to your team members, and hopefully to the clients around you as well. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Till next week.
Another great show talking about culture. This is going to be a 2-part series. We're going to put a second episode out around culture, building it, who's responsible for it, and we'll just try and add as much value as we can. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks a lot for listening on the podcast. Thanks a lot for watching on the show. Thanks a lot for tuning in on live and throwing a few comments on there on Instagram Live. Until next week, thank you very much.
See you guys.